not that critical. The media have moved on to other things and so on, so it differs. But they also control the output of these commission reports. And as I said, I've experienced this firsthand by the terms of reference that they write. Just to put that in a U.S. perspective, you think about the Warren Commission into the Kennedy assassination, and several times they asked Judge Warren, well, why didn't you look at this? And his response quite often was, well, it wasn't in my terms of reference. And so that's how they control the output. And so this is what Maurice Strong did when he set up the IPCC. He wrote the terms of reference. One of the first terms of reference is that the climate change definition is that you only look at human causes of climate change. And then the second thing that they did was they wrote it so that you do the science report, or the technical report as it's called. That's then set aside, and then you write the summary for policymakers, which is done by bureaucrats and politicians. And the summary for policymakers is released before the science report is released. And in 2007, it was done in April, and the science report came out in November. But the summary then goes to the people that wrote the science report and says, make sure your science report agrees with what we've written in the summary. So this is like an executive of a company saying to the employees, look, I've written a summary. I want you to write a report that confirms my summary.
Yeah, it's totally rigged, and they cynically know all this. It's about eugenics, and you read a quote. I'm actually doing research on Maurice Strong right now for a film. I was reading that quote last night, and I even went and found the videos of him saying we've got to have a law for a license, not even one child. The eugenicists will decide if you have any children. They've seized our entire economy. I was just on 93.7 KLBJ with Charlie Hodge for 4 minutes. I do a Freedom Nugget on there during the break, and he told me this breaking news, and I actually heard this driving in on 590 briefly this morning. I wasn't really paying attention. It was something about panhandlers begging for money for the police, and yeah, they throw them back in jail on their parole, and so there's this aggressive halfway house group. That's why they have them handing out the slips of paper and really getting in your face. It's to go give it to the government. They're actual slaves. I mean, there's no end to the evil. Now imagine the diabolical nature of the scam. Maurice Strong, back in the 70s and 80s, got a lot of criticism for saying you should have to have a license to have children, and they put it in Hollywood movies and culture, and then all the yuppies say, well, of course, there's too many people. Yeah, but they mean you too. And so Planned Parenthood, eugenics, Maurice Strong, of course, is a front for the Rockefeller Brothers Foundation. That's on record. I even have video clips. If we have time, I'll play some clips of him talking about, I got in trouble for saying you should have a license to have children, but it needs to be forced. And State Department Memorandum 200 is on record saying they wanted to force people not to have kids, and how to use war and famine and to get countries in so much debt that all the government spending goes to debt instead of the people. And so societies collapse. We're talking to climatologist Dr. Tim Ball. And you know, last time we had him on, he got into the science of how global warming wasn't man-made, it is natural. It's actually a good thing, but unfortunately we're going into a cooling cycle with the ice caps of Mars getting bigger and some of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn refreezing that had become liquid. They were liquid methane, now they're freezing. Notice he's just talking about what the overall agenda is. And I think that's the way to counter these people. Instead of arguing with people that say they invented the internet and things, it's better just to show they're a pack of criminals trying to vertically integrate the economy and carry out eugenics. But I think that's the direction you were going, Dr. Ball.
Yes, and I think that one of the things that they've very cleverly done, and as you know, Alex, you can win any argument by just distracting from the wider picture by focusing on one small point, and the focusing on CO2 to the distraction of the much wider issues is really how they've perpetuated this. And of course, then anybody that dared to stand up and question it is immediately attacked. Oh, climate skeptic. Well, I was called that years ago. I'm proud of that. All scientists should be skeptics.
They're trying to make it a hate crime in Europe.
Oh, I'm sure.
Akin to denying the Holocaust.
Oh, yeah, and James Hansen, the head of NASA GIS, who just was arrested for protesting at a coal plant as a civil servant, which makes you wonder what's going on, but he's made statements like we should be in jail. And we've had David Suzuki up here in Canada saying the same thing, that people should be in jail.
He also says humans are maggots that basically need to be exterminated.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that when you look at the whole environmental movement, and by the way, we needed to become more aware of our environment.
It's a bunch of gibbering control freaks who get off on pressing on the nerve of power. They've hijacked legitimate concerns against pollution and things like that.
Exactly, and now one of the ways that it's coming back on them a little bit, Alex, is that I dealt with my whole career with extremism and wondered what its purpose was, and I finally realized that it's the extremists that define the limits for the majority. I'll give you an example. Feminism, very necessary changes, and still a lot of changes needed, but the majority of women were saying, well, how far do we go with this? Then the extremists started doing silly things, and the majority said, oh, no, now we're losing more than we're gaining. Well, the same things happened with the environmental. It got hijacked by the extremists in Greenpeace and Sierra Club and Kennedy and all of these other people, and now they're reaching the point where they're just being completely illogical, and so the majority of people are starting to say, well, hang on a minute.
But wait, it's not illogical if you want to kill the majority of the planet. I mean, they've admitted in studies that if they put in these carbon cuts, it would kill half the third world.
Oh, well, sure, and so we saw that with the biofuels. I mean, the switch to the biofuels, and what did that do to food supply around the world and people dying?
Yeah, so, so it's crazy like a fox.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I've written articles about this, Alex, that there is a very deep-seated anti-humanity or underlying the environmental movement. You know, and it's sort of, if we could just get rid of all the people on the planet, it would be a great place to live.
Well, do you know what, Dr. Ball, stay there. Long segment coming up. This was a short segment. I want you to go over that. How you think we beat them? What do we do about this gargantuan climate bill that creates these commissars that are over all areas of the economy, over 30 agencies who just do whatever regulations they want? Look, if humans are so bad, Suzuki, you little twit, you control freak, you fake intellectual, kill yourself. Stop saying kill African babies, punk. Man, you make me sick. Maurice Strong, hey, go jump off a cliff, you little effeminate twerp. Be right back. Stay with us, Dr. Ball. Sir, you've read their own writings. You know what they're doing. They brag about it. Then they tell the public it's about humanity and our children and jobs. That was what they said over and over again as they passed the climate takeover bill. It's not just about eugenics, though. It's like a total Soviet society where everything's micromanaged, and we have these big global corporations who love it because they're monopoly capitalists. They know the biggest profits are made out of controlled partnerships with government. And you say people are waking up, and they are waking up. So they go from global warming to climate change to deteriorating atmosphere to carbon poison. I've seen dozens of video games, free on the Nickelodeon website and other places for kids where carbon monsters try to kill kids, and the kids practice killing the carbon monsters. They teach it's an absolute fact. It's toxic waste. It will kill you. You can tell the general public the scientific name of water, and they will panic, most of them, and say ban it. If you go out and talk to a crowd of people, that happens. So you've got the floor. Break down who these people are, how we counter them, where you see this fight going, what you think of the world right now, all across Europe and the United States and Canada, falling to the climate cops, falling to the new green tyranny, the home inspections, the shutting down of the factories, the energy taxes.